Flipping the right mic. 1 second. Okay, there it is. What's going on, everybody? We are back finally with the first episode of Podstrosities for 2020. Super exciting. First off, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for giving us some support last year with this podcast, as it kind of spurred us to keep it going because it was such a fun time. I hope you enjoyed the Witcher music, as we're going to be talking about that today. I'll go ahead and start it off with non-spoilers, and then we'll move in from there into like spoiler territory. But first, I need to introduce my podcast counterparts here.
It's just
Hey! I'm introducing
What?
you. Calm down.
I can't calm down, alright?
What's going on,
You
everybody?
know me.
Hello.
One by one, just go on, say who you are, and if you have a favorite Witcher character, let me know. Anyone could
Hi.
start.
Hi, I'm Carmichael. So, I'm a weirdo. Alright, I'll just say that out loud. I don't have a favorite character. I've never actually watched The Witcher.
Okay.
So I'm here to
have
learn.
you played any of the
okay?
games? Do you read the books? Anything?
Lady, you won't be happy with this discussion.
Okay.
Oh, it can get started.
Yeah, right.
Hey, but you know me. I'm your co-host, you know. So yeah, that's how we do it. Yeah.
And you're Australian, apparently.
Oh yeah, mate.
Chum, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Chumbalago. I have played all the Witcher games.
Nice.
My favorite character is Triss, and Jennifer is dog trash.
Oh, okay.
Wow. I've got
Bagman?
hiccups now.
Hi, my name is Bagman, and I've played The Witcher 3, and I've watched the entire show. And my favorite character is Yaska, or Dandelion, or
Oh, very
however you say it
nice.
in Russian.
Oh, I also watched the series too. I should mention that.
Yeah, I posted like a gif of him, and having never played any of the games, I'm just now getting into the book. I was like, they said like, oh, I love Dandelion, and I was like, who? And then I figured out
Things
that
like he's Daffodil.
that was him or something. I was like, that was not covered in the show. I don't know. I'm ignorant.
Okay, I'm searching up dandelion. Okay.
Yeah.
Dandelion, Witcher, whatever thingy.
Yeah, like he's Jaskier, and then it translates to Daffodil, and then that was turned into Dandelion.
Oh, that's even more interesting because I didn't know where it came from. I just thought maybe he had like a nickname or something.
And then it made a lot of people angry. They're like, well,
Did
he's
it?
not Dandelion from the games. His name's Jaskier. She's like, well, actually, it's the same guy. The translation of the name. Anyway.
Jeez.
Well,
So,
we found out that from the actual like showrunners or whatever that this is based off of the books technically and not the games. So I know some people might have been kind of pissed about that.
Yeah. It's in the books, or covers parts of the books.
Yeah, which I found really interesting because I feel like as a whole, like for mass culture or whatever, most people have probably played the games, but they decided to go more with the books, probably for content's sake, since there's a shit ton of them, and there's probably a ton of stuff going on in those. But I've never played any of the games. I've seen just a little tiny bits of it, but like I said, I watched the whole show just trying to get into it because I know that's a great series. And then I got the book for like really cheap, so I was like, oh, I'll try to read this too, which it's actually pretty decent so far. But the book is like after what the series is doing, so the series almost felt like a prelude to that. So that was kind of like an interesting way for me to start it. Is I watched the series first, then
Yeah,
read the book.
Essentially, the show is like what they're talking about, or they've referenced in the games and the books, is now being just shown on Netflix as a series.
Right, yeah, and I'm not sure. I want to say that there might be some sort of prequel book. I'm not 100% sure because I just started with Witcher number 1, whatever it was. I can't remember the name of it. But
As far as I
Okay.
As far as I
Oh,
know, each book is there is an order, and I know the series is based off of I think it's the Sword of Destiny book series.
all
Okay.
right.
If I'm
Are
right.
there are there multiple series of it? God, like
There's two short story there's three short story books and then two entire novels.
okay, because I
All
think I
right.
started like the novels, and there's like at least
Jeez.
three in those. I think you can get like a whole set of three or something like that. And then I want to say I went to Barnes and Noble looking for it, which was sold out by the way, which is crazy. And it had only the prequel book, and I was like, huh, I wonder if the show is actually based off of more of that kind of content as opposed to like the very number one first book, because the number one first book that I started out, the novel or whatever, definitely is like events after all of that, because they kind of reference back to him finding Siri and whatever else. Which, by the way, we're gonna start off the pod kind of spoiler free, just in case
Mhm.
anyone hasn't watched it and just kind of wants to get like an overview. I don't think that part necessarily is a spoiler, just because it's pretty obvious that he's
Yeah,
gonna
that's the crux.
go and find her or whatever. But just as a general note, if there is anything like later on in the show that you want to discuss, we'll save it for maybe a couple more minutes. But overall, how did you guys enjoy it? Just it being a standard, like, you know, Netflix show, even if you don't know anything about like The Witcher as a game or as a series or whatever. How did
Mhm.
you just enjoy the show overall?
I guess I'll
I
start.
don't
Oh,
know.
okay. Um,
We're not asking you.
So what am I doing there?
I don't
I enjoyed
know.
I enjoyed the series, the Netflix series. I didn't like its pacing, and
Okay.
we'll cover like what I mean by that when we get to like the spoiler section.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. As for a standalone, I have a few friends who have never played The Witcher, and so they went with the Netflix series and like, oh, okay. I They had to look up like some of the in-universe jargon, but for the most
Right.
part, they could kind of get it.
Like child surprise, and I'm like,
Yeah, the
excuse
wall
me.
surprise.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? That's not a normal thing.
It's a McDonald's order.
Mm-hmm.
What if you
Yeah,
did go through
yeah.
McDonald's and just were like, yes, I'd like the law of surprise. Just give me whatever. And they're like, well, we just made some new fries, so
Like
Um,
I personally I thought the series was great. Pacing, I agree, was like a bit that was wacky.
Mhm.
That was a bit of a weird decision, but overall, especially for a Netflix series, I thought
Yeah.
this was amazing.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
It almost kind of felt like Netflix's version of like Game of Thrones that they're trying to start up or something. Like, oh, Game of Thrones is over, so come on over and see this like Witcher series that we're starting. And it kind of reminded me a lot of the first season of Game of Thrones, where like you could kind of see that any of the special effects that they were doing wasn't like quite as budgeted as like maybe the last season of the Game of Thrones series.
Mhm.
You could kind of see that like they had the budget for it. Obviously, they got really big stars and stuff. But at the same time, some of it was a little rough, and you could kind of tell. But I can kind of see how like their vision of it will definitely become better and better as they go along, because obviously it was like the number one streaming show against the Mandalorian when they were both kind
Mhm.
of going at the same time around that same period. Obviously it's a huge success, so I think they'll continue it, and as they get more and more funding for it, uh start making some of those like CGI effects and things like that a lot better. But even what I did see, I kind of have to keep reminding myself that this is more of like a series budget as opposed to something like a grand like movie budget.
Right.
And what I saw for like the TV series, I thought was like really well done for the most part. Obviously, there's some like strange things happening with like masks and you know like a little bit of like weird like okay that totally doesn't look like it's going to be there in real life, but just the overall story I enjoyed. I was hella confused about kind of what you're saying with the pacing, where it jumps around a lot, and I wasn't expecting that because I mean I'm just going into this completely blind,
Yeah.
and they've got the three main characters essentially. You got the Witcher, Yennefer, and Ciri's storylines, but the way that they're put together are not necessarily in sync with each other. Like they're not all in one timeline. They're not going together. They're actually like different pieces of the past thrown together into like one
They're
episode.
not in chronological order.
Yeah, and in that part of it, I didn't actually pick up on until like the third or fourth episode, I think, because something happened. I don't remember what it was exactly, but something happened where I was like, oh, they're referencing like a thing that happened in like the past that we're seeing with like the other person and blah blah blah. So that part was a little jarring for me. Just going in the first time, I watched it a second time with my boyfriend, and I told him like from the get-go that they had the time shifts or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, like I'm glad you told me that cuz this is making a lot more sense." And on top of that, once I watched it through the second time, I'm picking up on very small conversations, and some of those conversations are actually talking about things happening in the other timeline, and I'm like, "Oh, like they did try to give you hints toward it, but the way that the way that they try to drop you little like tidbits, little crumbs of like hints and stuff of like that's the past, this is the future kind of thing, I didn't quite pick up on the first time, and that's why I think I was so confused. But at the same time, I don't know if I was paying attention so great the first time because I was like watching it with my sister and we were just kind of like fucking around. But but it was still like enjoyable. As much as I was very confused, I eventually had to like look things up for like episode synopses after I watched it just to make sure that like I understood what was happening. But that was probably my only gripe, was like I'm totally fine with time shifts and things like that, but I just didn't think that they conveyed it as clear as it could have been for
And that's
people
very much
who...
intentional. They absolutely wanted it to be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to a certain degree, like I said, there was like a lot of conversations and stuff that I realized that were like actually trying to hint at that, but I wasn't sure if that was their intent, that like by the fourth episode you're supposed to be like, oh, they're not in the same timeline. And it's like, I don't know, like it just didn't, like that part of it felt very clunky if that was the case, you know?
Rebellion.
Mhm.
Could you please make that voice again? Yeah, that's
I gotta save
perfect,
that for
just
the Star
perfect.
Wars discussion.
Okay, so my question to all of you, you've some of you played Witcher, some of you watching The Witcher. So a person like me who's done nothing, how would you describe Witcher to me?
Um,
Good question.
personally, the first thing I gotta say is for the first 4 episodes, if you don't know anything about The Witcher, you might get lost. First 4 episodes, I got a bit lost myself, but then like after episode 4, the series really does a job of then saying like it's sort of like, because all the story after episode 4, all the story started slowly come together for the finale, and that's where it gets much better. But for someone who's never done anything with The Witcher before, um, doing a bit of research is good. Playing the games is good, I guess. But
No. I think you
He wants to know,
misunderstood my
like, if you were
question.
to describe The Witcher, like, what
Yeah,
the
like how would
story
how would you
is, not like
describe
how the
the
Netflix
what
series is.
what the think of it as hold on, let's
Grumpy old
Excuse-
Superman has to kill monsters for money, and everyone thinks he's an asshole.
grumpy old man
Got it.
kills monsters for money, and destiny happens.
Lots of Destiny.
Grumpy old man. I'm just noting this down, all right? I'm just noting grumpy old man. What?
It hunts monsters for money.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And it's obviously it's like more leaning toward like fantasy, kind of like a Lord of the Rings as opposed to something else.
Ah, okay. Okay.
It's very much like if you put Lord of the Rings and then decided to put a lot more like spooky stuff in it.
Yeah, a lot more like monster hunting, I guess. Like you're gonna see a lot more in the way of like
Which is why
creepy
Geralt
monsters.
is in Monster Hunter.
Right. Like it's like Monster Hunter meets like Lord of the Rings.
Really? That's very interesting, dude.
Yeah.
That's a good way to go with it.
Yeah, and then like I said, there in the series specifically, I don't know about the games exactly, but there are 3 main characters. You've got obviously the main Witcher. You've got his semi love interest Yennefer, who's like a mage.
Ugh.
and you have Siri, who is his destined child person. I don't really know how to exactly describe that without spoilers, but it's basically someone who he has to like take care of. And she's like
Okay.
maybe 12, I think they said in the show. And she has some sort of magical something, and they haven't really gone over a whole lot of that in the show, so I can't even really spoil that, but she's got some sort of magical prowess that has been passed down throughout her family's line, so we are probably going to see what all she is, but those are like maybe the main three. I don't know. There's also the bard, like we were talking about before, Dandelion, whoever he is. He's
Yes,
kind of just
yeah.
like the funny sidekick guy. Not really a main
Okay.
character, but definitely like a comic relief, fun character. So
I
yeah,
understand. I very well understand like the general idea of what's happening over there. I'd probably get into Netflix as soon as I have some money for it,
Mhm.
because I don't spend a lot of money on Netflix. So,
yeah, for sure. And sometimes they do release their series like in a DVD format for, if you have like a
oh,
I don't know how it is where you live, but like, here if you have any kind of like DVD rental services, sometimes they'll have them in those if you do want to like just rent them and watch them.
nah. You know what I'll do? I will
Just find it online, watch it for
illegally.
free.
Yes.
Or that. We don't
Yes.
condone illegal activity,
Yes.
but if you need to, go
Yes.
ahead.
Piracy
Definitely.
is okay if you don't get caught.
Yeah, there's certain things that I'm like, whatever to pirate, but yeah, usually I try to
Yeah,
avoid
but
it
this
if
is
possible.
not an illegal activity, is it? Like watching Witcher
I know
from
Ampu
a
said that
fucking
he
normal
thought
thing.
about streaming it here at some point, so maybe we can get him to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
and the Mandalorian too, because apparently,
I would
like
love to.
all the rest of the world can't even access that right now. So he's got to kick him in the butt.
Before we continue, Rebellion, when he was speaking, when he was just on, like, when you were talking, you, Chum, and Batman, I didn't understand a lot at that point, so I opened up a Domino's butterscotch mousse cake.
Excuse me?
You know butterscotch mousse cake?
No.
You don't know butterscotch cake from Domino's?
I don't
No.
know.
No, I
We
don't.
don't
I
have
don't
that
think we
here.
have that.
We have Domino's, we don't have that.
What?
They have like lava
That
cake,
sounds
I think.
region specific.
That is
If you
definitely
can watch the
region-specific.
stream, guys, this is the butterscotch mousse cake. I don't know how to pronounce this. I forgot how to pronounce the mousse. I think it's called mousse.
Mousse,
Maybe
I'm
it
not
is
yeah.
a
sure.
lava cake. Is it a chocolate type of?
No, it's butterscotch.
It's like butterscotch, like a kind of like caramel, except a little.
No, I mean like was there
saltier.
chocolate in it? Because you got to find something that can overlap. Otherwise, that reference is lost on all of us.
Okay, well, it's butterscotch with a little bit of chocolate in it.
Oh, okay. So there's chocolate. Maybe it's a lava cake. It's just got butterscotch.
No, it's
in it.
not a lava cake, for fuck's sake.
Well, it sounds like it's not real. That's what I'm hearing. Sounds like he's making
Well, you
stuff
can
up
fake
on
well, you
news.
can check the stream, for fuck's sakes. All right, don't kill me.
Sounds not real. I don't know. I'm gonna go eat my lava cake right now.
All right. Well, we will. We'll start up with the spoiler talk now. So, Carmichael, I don't know if you want to avoid this if you're still wanting to watch the show, but we're gonna talk about.
I don't really watch, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, just making sure, because we'll start talking about, kind of more important things. So if anyone here has not watched the show and still wants to, go freaking watch it. Damn it, it's a good show.
I'll get back to the cake.
All right, get back to the cake. Go shove your face full of cake. All right, so spoiler wise, I guess we'll kind of go through like anything that you guys could think of that like kind of what Chum said, like if anything actually bothered you, that it would be a little more spoilery, feel free to open up about it. Give your full review now of the show with any spoilers included.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead. So kind of like what we were saying with the timeline jumping, episode 4, the one that we were talking about that kind of finally like made it snap, like, oh, this is a time shift thing, is actually an episode where you meet Siri's parents, not really realizing at first that is Siri's parents exactly, but you kind of like meet the grandmother and everyone else who was in that first scene with her. That was like the first moment, and it kind of even that kind of caught me off guard, because the problem with this show sometimes is that some of those characters only show up for like one episode or maybe a couple episodes, and you kind of like, if you don't already know who the fuck they are, then you kind of have to just like memorize like faces, and maybe if you can catch their names. So at first I didn't even realize that was her grandmother until my sister said something, and I was like, oh shit, that is her grandmother. And then I was like, wait a minute, so if we're like way back in time, because obviously that castle has fallen, blah blah blah, I was like, oh shit, like it was like a light bulb moment. But that was the only other thing. Like, I was gonna say, like, episode 4 is really where it kind of kicks off that whole, like, okay, you're seeing up until he's going to meet her, like, what has happened up until that point. And I was kind of surprised to see, like, you know, up until the very last episode is when you finally get to the point where, like, you know, the castle is falling and stuff like that. He's going into the woods, yada yada. And that's where they're gonna meet. Because the whole time you're thinking, okay, you're gonna meet them in the woods. You're gonna find the girl in the woods. She's in the woods. He's gonna go in the woods at some point, you know. But it's like even further after that. I mean, we're talking like, I think what, decades in between the storylines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Witchers don't age.
Mm-hmm.
Much at
Which
all.
was another thing, like Nate was pointing out. He was like, okay, I can understand, like, Witcher's not aging, Mage is not aging, but, like, why is the grandmother not, like, more gray or something? Like, it's been, like, 20, 30 years or something like that.
She has skills, Rebel.
I
She
mean,
has
I
better
guess.
skills.
Apparently, it's like a magical family, except whatever magicalness that the daughter and the
Magical
granddaughter possessed skipped over her, I think she said. So I don't know. I'm not really even sure like what she is or is going to become, but yeah, that was that was the other thing that didn't quite make it obvious to me, because none of the characters were really like aging, and some of those they make sense, the Witcher and the Mage, but other ones like the grandparents, or even the Bard, none of them really showed any signs of aging. They didn't have like facial hair or grayness or something indicating that was in, like, you know, in the future versus the past, whatever. So yeah, that's just my general like con for this, because everything else I really enjoyed. I just could not get over the very strange jumping around of like timelines and stuff. And Yennefer's timeline completely, I'm just like, who knows where she's been at.
Oh,
I
don't worry.
understand
No
when
one- no
she's
one
with The
cares.
Witcher, but
No one
please
likes
explain
Yen.
your
Get the hell outta here,
hatred for Yennefer.
Oh.
I need to know why you hate her so much.
Okay, so my experience with The Witcher prior to the Netflix series was the games. And I started with 3 because I just happened, that was when it came out, and so I was like had to go back and go through 1, 2, 3 again. And I just like, I already can't stand unnecessarily bitchy characters. And then having to see her, like, kind of her backstory, it's just like it feels like it was very much intended to be like you're supposed to feel sorry for her, but now all I can think is don't like you even more now. Like, I actually dislike you more because of this. Instead of learning a lesson, you triple down. Like, I have no sympathy for you. I don't like you. Also, there's another character that I do like, and she didn't really do much in the Netflix series at all, but in the games I really appreciate her company. Is Triss, and then to have to compare Yennefer and Triss with my experience and everything, I'm just like, girl, you're an idiot. You don't actually like Yennefer. She's the only girl that's just been kind of different.
Yeah, and that was another thing.
He
I
likes
think
the
kind
hunt
of-
and the chase, and she's kind of an asshole. I mean, they're both grumpy assholes, but that is a horribly unhealthy relationship.
Right, that was exactly what I was thinking, is like, you know, the whole time you know that they're gonna end up being like the love interest or whatever, but like I was kind of just like, so that like they bang and then they bang again. I'm like, So is it the banging that you like? Like what? There's actually nothing really I'm seeing personality
Like
wise,
they have almost no reason
experience
to like
wise.
each other.
There's like exactly like I was kind of like I understand that this is kind of the way that it's supposed to be from like the story, like there's supposed to be love interests or whatever, but I didn't see why. I was just kind of like, you guys are just having some like hot sex. I don't really see any kind of connection other than your genitals.
Uh, I also have a bias, an extra bias. I have dated Yennifers in my lifetime, so I extra don't
Mm.
like
Yeah,
extra
because
don't like anyone similar to any of that.
I guess I'll
So
provide
there's a bias there.
a counterpoint because again, I'm coming in fresh and I don't know anything about what happens later on in like the games or the books or whatever else, but I did find her character very interesting at the very least. Like I definitely she is like a bitch and a half and she's not really like my kind of like type or style, but I really liked how they showed her going from this like awful childhood with the humpback and the messed up jaw and all this stuff to her actually becoming this very like powerful necessary like mage character that like it's like, you know, like badass bitch, like I don't need no man, I don't need anybody kind of thing. Like I really liked kind of seeing that. I liked her kind of plot line of trying to bring back like the things that had been stolen from her going through the mage process or whatever, and like I could kind of understand why she became the way that she was. Like she,
Yeah.
you know, she obviously didn't come from like the greatest
Yeah,
places.
she was sold off for less than the price of a cow.
A pig, no
A pig,
less.
yeah.
Yeah, how dare
she
you
kept-
get the animal wrong?
Right, like exactly.
Okay,
She kept
okay.
being called Piglet. Like it was like
Yeah.
so in your face, like you are just fucking scum, you know. And I was like, damn, like that would make me like a bitch too, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and I totally
Jeez.
get why she is the way she is for a while. And it's just like, okay, but now you're just being an asshole to completely irrelevant people that had nothing to do with the situation.
yeah. And it kind of surprised me at the very end when they did like their whole battle against Nilfgaard, and I was kind of like, I feel like the way that you've built this girl up, it doesn't really make sense for her to just be like, oh, I'm gonna go do the good thing right now. Because for the whole series, you know, after she had the transformation, was all about her, like going to court where she wanted to, getting like her uterus back or whatever, like, you know, her trying to become more powerful, like all of that was all greed based. It was all, how am I going to become more powerful? She wanted to take in the djinn and become more powerful, that kind of thing. And then at the very end, she was like, but I'm gonna be a good person now.
I think it's just, it's weird. I'm in a weird place where it's like I understand her motivations. I don't understand her love-hate relationship with Geralt at all.
No.
Like I just completely don't understand that whatsoever.
It was almost like they were trying to spin it as like birds of a feather kind of thing, like, oh, so no one understands us and we're all like freaks and blah blah blah, so we should be together kind of thing, which is like fine to a certain
Someone
degree,
pointed out-
but they kept saying, oh, you love her, don't you? And I'm like, how?
when?
Yeah, right,
What do you love?
exactly.
Like you've known her for like a couple days, and it's just like you're supposed to imply that they've had other encounters, but the series only has like what, 8 episodes or something.
8 freaking episodes, and a lot of
Yeah.
them just saying like, oh yeah, that stuff happened, but you didn't see it.
Hey, remember that time we helped each other? Wow, I can't believe we should bone. I mean, you helped save my friend that I don't care about.
Yeah,
Jeez.
like
We're
and
not
she kept
actually
saying
kids.
how she kept bumping into him. I'm like, well, this is like maybe the third time in like 30, 20 years or whatever. That's not really that often. But yeah, I guess you're just supposed to assume that they just
Does
keep
that
bumping
really
into
happen
each
over
other.
there?
What?
Does that really happen in the series, kind of thing?
What?
Where they just bump into each other over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's what they
so-
imply is that they keep
Yeah.
like that their destiny is tied together in some certain way where they keep bumping up. But really, you only see that maybe like a couple times, and it's like, okay, because they really don't explain a lot of the in between stuff. It, like I said, it's 8 episodes of a lot of jumping around between like in a couple decades of worth of lifetime. So it's like there's a shit ton of stuff that we probably missed that you just kind of have to infer. They did say that the second season is going to be coming out like relatively quickly, and I think they said that they're going to try to make it more linear. So I'm hoping that they kind of show us more instead of telling us more, because that was probably my only thing. I know that the first season's almost like a setup episode where it's like, here are all the characters. Some of them you kind of get like their origins or whatever, little tidbits here and there for like The Witcher and Ciri, not a whole lot, but just kind of setting up as like where they came from and who they are and why they're all destined to kind of be together. But I'm hoping that the next series does do more showing than telling, because that was it was just a lot of inference that I was like, I don't even know if I'm like inferring the right things because I don't know shit about this. Just kind of making it up as I go along.
Okay. So like before Bagman and Lego said that you need to play the game or something. So do you think that it'll be better for the new viewers to actually like for the series to have a prequel, for to understand the series?
I'll let you guys answer that since I don't really have any prior experience.
I'd say you don't. It's not needed, but it's helpful.
Exactly. If it's helpful, it's needed.
Well, in a lot, like I said, I
I'm
watched
saying,
it
I'm
fresh.
just saying on a very logical thing. If it okay. Do you think a light is needed in a room? No, but it's helpful, right? Yeah. No. All right. Cool.
Okay.
But there's also a certain like you have to. I think some of the charm was to learn as you go, though. Like I don't know if you should completely take away your element of surprise just to know things. You know what I mean? Because you are learning new things. Yeah. Like you are supposed to be surprised by things. If you already know stuff, that's going to take away the surprise. But sure, it might be more helpful in piecing together the timeline or something like that.
Yes, for sure.
The only thing that will really confuse you is the terminology used and some of the more complicated terminology and stuff, because it is like it's a prequel story, so it starts where it starts and ends where it starts. Wait, no.
I understand that.
The story itself, after you figure out the time skipping thing, story itself isn't too complicated to grasp. It's more just figuring out like what the heck is a Striga, what's a Kikimora, what's a werewolf, what's the difference? What is each of the kingdoms? Why do we care about them?
Oh god, so many kingdoms. Because there's like multiple kings, multiple kingdoms, and you never know where you're at in any episode other than the obvious Sintra ones.
Is it something like Game of Thrones?
Kinda. Those were like
more than Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was almost like if Game of Thrones they had one king or queen like ruling over everyone. It's almost like if you had 20 more Game of Thrones areas. Like there were multiple.
Oh, that's hard, dude. That's hard
because
to. But is it something like Game of Thrones, like how they portray the relationships as well?
Of like the kingdoms or whatever?
Yeah.
No, like they all kind of just seem
separate. You don't see much of the
kingdoms. No, and you don't even really see much of the.
You see a whole lot of Sintra because that's where like Ciri comes from and stuff.
Right.
And you see Temeria quite a bit because like episode 3 is all based in Temeria, and I think episode 5 is there.
I've never even heard that before. Like I don't even know what that is.
Temeria is the place where the king who had sex with his sister lives.
Okay, because guy I finally learned his name, and I was like, okay,
King
but then that's one episode.
Wait a second. I need to understand something. So the king had intercourse with what? With who?
With his sister.
That is like Game of Thrones.
Who does that?
King Foltest.
Ancestral people. I don't
fucking incest bullshit.
But that's the thing too, is that's one episode. Like they may be in that kingdom for like the majority of the show, for all I know, but like they really only go over that king and his issues and whatever in like one episode. And then you don't really go back, except for Triss, I think was his mage, and she shows up later, but other than that, like you kind of hear them talk about them, but like he fights the Striga or whatever, and then like that's like it. Like there's really not much else to be done with that king in that area specifically.
I think the reason the kingdoms get really confusing is because there's that episode where all the mages are talking, and then the guy goes, "Oh yeah, so here's the northern kingdoms. We have Temeria here, then we have this one, this one, this one. Like 5 of them start with the same letter, which
Yes,
doesn't help. Which doesn't
Sodden,
help.
and then you got like Sintra, Sodden, who fuck else? I don't
Sintra,
know.
Sodden, Skellige, and then there's like
And then
something.
Sintra,
There's like
and
3
then
with K
Siri,
in them.
I kept getting fucked up too, because I'm like, that's basically like the same fucking word. Sintra, Siri, Stregobor,
Why would you
Striga.
name your kid after your country?
Like, seriously?
I love this thing. I just love it.
The names, especially the sorcerers' names, made me laugh quite a bit. You've got Mouse Sack, and then you've got Stregobor.
Which, like,
when
I
I-
just gave up on names at a certain point. I knew the 4 main characters, and I was like, that's it. I don't know anybody else. I'm just going off of faces at this point.
Me and my friend watched the first episode together, and when we heard Stregobor, he didn't hear it properly, and he turns to me and went, "Did they just say stroking balls?"
Well, they have such thick accents for some of them too that I'm just like, wait, excuse me, what?
Are they from Ireland?
I'm sure they're from like all over. I heard some that were more like British. I heard some that were more like Scottish sounding. They were kind of just all over like European
Believe
languages.
me, the Scottish accent is hard to follow.
Yeah,
It's
and
so hard to
very, like,
follow.
I personally just have a
It's
really hard
very,
time
like,
with accents. I don't know why. Like, whenever I watch something like a Game of Thrones, like, I have to turn it up quite a bit because sometimes I just can't quite piece out the words. But I think that's just like a personal problem with me because I'm like that with almost every accent, even American accents
lot of the-
sometimes.
A lot of the accents are like your stereotypical, like, fantasy RPG accents. It's like, this guy's British or Swedish. It's one or the other.
Yeah. British or Swedish. Yeah, right. And I don't even know. I'm like, there's like a bajillion different kinds of just English, like UK accents, and I'm like, I don't know.
You believe
Oh,
me,
God,
believe
yes.
me. God
There's a
damn
lot
it.
of us.
You have no
Couldn't
idea. You have
tell
no
ya.
idea how like weird Indian sounds. Okay, the Indian English. So you see how the American and the British English is, right? So Indians have created their own in English. Okay, based on both of the region. So it becomes so fucking difficult for me to understand what they're talking about. I'm like, let's just talk in our mother tongue. Is that okay?
Yeah, right. I can't even imagine because, like, at least in America, it's like we all speak the same like language or whatever. We just kind of have variations of accent, but
Yeah,
like we're
in
a
Texas as well.
gigantic like country, so I kind of can understand how the regions have different accents. But then you got like smaller countries like the UK, and they have like almost the same amount of like different kinds of accents. And I'm like, how does this happen?
definitely.
But it's
And
very interesting.
you
to me,
see
though.
all of that in the TV series as well, like Game of Thrones and shit. And
Yeah.
most of the times I don't understand it, but it's like it's something nice that they add these subtitles to it. I'm like,
Subtitles
this is
are
True.
awesome.
Yeah,
If-
that's
if-
usually
if-
the way I like to do it is put on subtitles. I know it's kind of annoying because I'm not like a anime sub kind of person. I prefer to just be able to like listen to it, but every once in a while I will turn on subtitles because I really want to
Okay.
be able to pay attention to what they're saying.
the only reason I would ever put a sub thingy is because the person is from Northern Ireland, Scotland. That's the only reason. These are the two accents I can never understand. I
Yeah,
understood
and
literally every single thing.
I feel like this show is not too bad. Like, there are some variations, but for the most part, it wasn't, like, super hard to understand. It was just the fact that they were, like what Bagman was saying, using a lot of terminology and names that I couldn't parse out, like, who was who and what was what. That was my only problem, was that, like, not only do you have some, like, accents, you're trying to understand, like, what they're trying to say, and then also trying to put that together with what that is or who that is. It was just a lot thrown at you at once. That was really the only problem. It wasn't necessarily the accent, just people trying to say a bunch of things, and I'm like, I have no idea, like, who you're talking about, what you're talking about, like, and especially since it's a very almost episodic series up until like maybe midway, where every episode is like different people having a different problem with a different monster. And so you're trying to figure out, like, you know, who all they're talking about, whatever they're talking about, where they're at. And then by like halfway through the show, you're basically staying with the same people, so you kind of can like keep it together. But the very beginning of it is a lot of jumping around to different people with different like, monsters that they have to have Geralt fight or whatever. So a lot of
What
that
was
is
your
like, I don't know if I'm supposed to remember these people. I don't know, like, what's going on, kind of thing.
And then the ones you think you can forget, you end up having to remember the most.
Yeah, really. Because like certain people, like Triss, for example, like I had no idea like if I was supposed to remember her, and then she kind of pops up later, and I was like, I feel like maybe she's important. I don't know. Then she's like getting burned, and I'm like, shit, is she gonna die? Do I have to forget about her now? But apparently, I mean, according to the games at least, it sounds like she's still alive and kicking and doing shit. But I don't know about this series though. Like, I was surprised to even see her, and it took me forever to figure out like that the Nilfgaard mage was the same girl from like Yennefer's class or whatever, and how she got shunted over there because Yennefer took her spot or whatever. Like
Yennefer's
that
a
whole
pretty
relationship
girl.
was kind of like confusing for me for a little bit until I kind of figured that out by the end. It's also kind of weird that every area, every kingdom or whatever is supposed to get a mage, but like Nilfgaard's like the evil kingdom trying to take over all the other kingdoms, but they still get a mage though. Like it was kind of like funny to see how in the very beginning, like before all of the Nilfgaard like issues, they were like in the fold as like, the kingdoms or whatever, like the list of kingdoms, and everyone that gets a mage or whatever, but now they're like evil people. It's like, maybe we should not have given them a mage, especially one who basically turns evil. But that was kind of interesting too, seeing that girl go from, just naive, learning magic, doing whatever, to being like this super creepy, like evil sorceress lady for Nilfgaard or whatever.
I
By
feel
all
like
accounts, oh, go ahead.
Oop.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Bagman.
I was gonna say, I feel like Fringilla and Yennefer have a good contradicting sort of arc throughout the whole show, in the way that Yennefer sort of wants power but doesn't get it the way she
Yeah.
wants and stuff. But then Fringilla sort of didn't necessarily want power like Yennefer, didn't come
She
from
got
the
like
same.
shoved into it because that wasn't
She
even
got
supposed to
shoved
be her
into it,
court, and then she got shunted
and
over
then
there.
somehow like Fringilla's sort of like, you see how like someone who maybe didn't want power or whatever, what they get corrupted by power, and in a way Yennefer, like in the end she's kind of just like, well, F power, I'm gonna go save everyone now.
Right. Right, exactly. And that was an interesting conversation between them at the very end too, where she was like, we've got what you want, so why don't you join us? And I was sitting there thinking, why doesn't she? Like, that's exactly what she would want. Like, despite it being like evil or whatever, she was willing to do a lot of like semi-evil things, like taboo things, to get her power back or to get her lady parts back or whatever. And she was offering her a way to do that, and she was finally, I guess it was kind of like one of those things where like they have a moment where they're like, oh, I must be a good person now, instead of being like a little selfish bitch. But I didn't feel like that part was earned necessarily, because the whole time I was just thinking, in the universe where she has been acting the way she has up until this point, she would have accepted that and gone with Nilfgaard and been like, yeah. It's also interesting to think like what would have happened to her had she gone to Nilfgaard like she was supposed to. Would she have been the same way? Would she have had a change of heart like she is now, kind of thing? So the whole mage thing, I think, was like actually one of the more interesting bits for me, just seeing the different like kinds of mages and the different kingdoms, and like how that whole thing kind of works. Because I usually, when you think of like mages and stuff, like it was almost like a court, every court has to have like a jester or something like that. It's like every court had to have a mage or whatever, and it was like an advisor. And I thought that was kind of like an interesting difference from like how you see mages in other games and shows and stuff like that. Usually they're just like kind of out doing like whatever magey stuff they want to do. Usually they're like evil or something like that. But like the fact that it's almost like a occupation to just like have a mage in every court, and they have a very particular part to play. And obviously Yennefer tried to play that part, realized it was boring as fuck, and then went and did exactly what I would expect, is go and be like a badass by herself. That's
Went
kind of
and took
interesting.
over a town. She took over like that town at the
Yeah.
one part.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny too, how she kind of like set up shop as like the local, like it was almost like having like a psychic reader or something, like everyone just goes there to fix their problems or whatever. But yeah, like I was kind of like, it is weird to think that these mages have all this power, but then they're just subject to their kingdoms and their kings and queens or whatever. They're not like really allowed to be like free people. They have to actually like, you know, follow whatever their ruler is telling them to do and advise them as best as they can. But obviously, you know, she tried to do that. It didn't obviously work out because they all like died and shit. And it was just kind of like, well, fuck that. I'm gonna go do my thing now. And it's like, you know, I'm surprised that we don't see that more often, since when you have power like that, you know, you would expect to just like kind of, I guess, I don't know what Stregorbor's like whole deal is, because he doesn't seem like he's tied to like a court or anything, but he also doesn't like run the place, I don't think. Like he kind of just does his own thing, it seemed like, as well.
It's against the rules for mages to be necessarily in power, and with the way the whole like no one was inherently evil,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason there's even attack at all is because of more or less a sweeping religion.
Yeah,
That's
well, and it kind of seemed
it's a
like,
very encroaching, like, hey, this is actually our religious belief. It's you can get this power too if you
right,
believe in this thing we do.
right,
Um,
exactly, and
and
it kind of seemed like Stregobor kind of did his like own thing, where he was actually kind of almost like shunned for doing like the taboo thing of like running around and like killing all of those infants who had been born during the eclipse. I had to go look up what that was about too, because they said, "Oh, the children born between the blah blah blah," and I was like, "What?" And then I looked it up, and it was like, "It's an eclipse," and I was like, "Oh." But like it was kind of funny how they brought up that he kind of went off the rails to like go around and kill all these kids for like basically no reason. He said research, quote unquote, but it wasn't really. So
Only good prophecies rhyme.
I guess that's kind of like, I guess that was his role, was maybe like doing like research and things like that, but like his role was kind of fuzzy to me as well, where he was like a leader of that whole mage coven thing, but wasn't like beholden to anybody. He kind of just did whatever he wanted to.
So the Witcher universe, which is kind of like throughout the games, the books, and everything, like one universal constant they have is that it is not a series that will tell you, hey, this is our new type of monster of the week.
Yeah.
It is a universe of these things exist and you will just run into them.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a like Ash Ketchum goes through a new world, a new country.
Yeah,
Like,
which it kind of started off like feeling like that, where they had like Renfrey, she was kind of the quote unquote monster in the first episode. They had the the goat guy, I think, in the second one. I think the third one was like the Striga, that kind of thing. Like it kind of felt like it was like a monster of the week thing, but then later on it starts shifting away from like monster hunting and more toward like the actual like plot line of what's going on. And then you kind of just run into different monsters and stuff like in the woods and in the ground and stuff like that, which I thought was kind of cool. But I did like the variety that they showed of different kinds of monsters and how he like was very knowledgeable. Oh, and the dragon episode, I forgot about that one too. That was another like very monster specific episode.
The series doesn't tell you exactly what a Witcher is, just that they hunt monsters and everyone hates them.
No, and I really, that was the one like origin story that I was really hoping to get, and we just got like a snapshot of it. You will never actually
get that.
We only got the snapshot of him like being a child, but then being like ditched, and that was it. And other than that, he just basically was like, kids get picked up by these peeps. They like 3 out of 10, I think he said, like get turned into a Witcher, and like that's it. And it's like, well, why, how, what? Like
you're
we saw one other Witcher in the show, and you're like, oh, there's more, but then it's like he like dies, and it's like, is that a big deal? Because Geralt seems kind of upset about it, but like It doesn't sound like there's a lot of them. There's a lot of
There's
questions around them.
it's a tired reference, but the Witcher series is in the same sense a functioning world like Dark Souls is, and that this is the world. Your character just lives in it now.
Yeah.
And the audience is not told, hey, this part of the world has just been developed. Welcome to New Land. This place exists, you just stumbled onto it. And the early episodes of The Witcher are, this is what a Witcher does every day. Like, this is the daily life of a Witcher, and then it expands out to the grand scheme of things of, this is what the rest of the world is doing.
Right, yeah, and it very much just kind of throws you into the deep end. There's not a whole lot of like it, there's a funny part with the bard where he was like, "Oh, now I'm just creating exposition." But it's like, no, really, like there's no exposition, so it's funny that they have to point out that he's creating exposition. Because it was almost like they were making fun of themselves for not like really explaining a whole lot, but just having that one little tidbit of him like explaining something about the land or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely one of those worlds that is a lot grander than I thought it was going to be, just assuming like The Witcher is just like a monster hunter or whatever. So I'm super excited to get into like more of the series and also the book, especially because I think the book it's going to tell me a little more like future wise about what happens to these characters. But yeah, it definitely leaves me wanting more.
Rebellion. Rebellion, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm typing out a message, but go ahead.
No worries. So we have a bit of minutes. So how about we do a Q&A from the audience?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them our way. We're currently in like spoiler territory, by the way, everyone who came in with the raid. So if you have not seen the Witcher series and don't want to hear anything about it, go ahead and mute the tab or whatever. We obviously appreciate your view. But if you don't want to hear about it, mute the tab.
What the frick was that laugh? I loved it.
But yeah, if you have any questions you want to ask us, we've got some people here who know a little bit more about The Witcher from like the games and whatnot, and I'm kind of like a newbie in it, so we'll try to answer them as much as we can. But we're mostly opinion based here, obviously, trying to go over the series.
Yeah, like everyone's opinion matters. Every life matters. Every cow lives matter as well. So stop eating beef. Just have some fun.
Take a direction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. Is there anything else that we have not discussed that anyone would like to discuss? I'm trying to think. We kind of went over our sort of gripes with it. I'm trying to
don't like
think.
Yennefer.
The fact that we don't like Yennefer, apparently. Did you guys think that the ending was appropriate? Like, were you satisfied with it? Were you like, fuck this? A lot of people have brought up to me that they did not like the ending.
I liked it. It felt realistic in the sense of like, and then maybe it's just because it's another bias I sort of have that I've started to like develop into that I didn't mean to, where I'm hearing people be upset by endings that aren't just blatantly, everyone did okay. We're all good after all. Like any movie that has an ending that isn't like that is suddenly called a bad movie. And it's like, no, this world that they live in kind of sucks.
Right. Well, and obviously in 8 episodes, you're not gonna. You're not gonna solve all the world's problems. Like, obviously, there's gonna be more to their story than just like these 8 episodes.
This was a bonehead decision, and that was a bad idea. And someone said in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Bagman.
I really hated the ending. Like,
is it because it felt too Deus Ex Machina? Or
yeah, it's just I don't like cliffhangers for the start.
Oh, okay, that would do it.
Cliffhangers suck. That's one thing. Cliffhangers suck, but I guess in a series, I know cliffhangers are kind of needed to keep hype going, so I can understand that. But I kind of just one of my weirdest things at the ending, is the fact that Geralt and Ciri, they're running through the woods, and it's like what's gonna happen because they're both running through the same woods. But then it's like, why does she hug him?
I almost kind of felt like it was just like at long last she's been searching for him for we're not really sure how long, but she's gone through a lot
Well,
of
like,
shit
she's
trying to
been-
find him. I almost felt like it was
Yeah.
just like a I mean, plus keep in mind she is like 12 years old, 11 years old. So she is a kid, young
but
girl. She's been out on her own, going through a lot of shit, looking for this goddamn guy, and finally she just kind of like runs into him. I think it was just one of those things where it was like fuck, finally. Like it just like almost
The,
like a happiness like that she
But, like,
finally
she's
found
never,
him or something.
She's never seen Geralt before
No.
this.
Well, and she's been promised that like, you know, like he's going to like help her and take care of her and stuff. I think she just took that to heart and was like this is my for lack of a better word Superman. Haha.
After I've seen so many men in these woods, I just hope this is the guy.
Yeah, right. Well, and that was
they
the
don't show it in
thing.
the story. They don't
Yeah,
show
go
the
ahead.
story, but like, yeah, she is shown who Geralt is, and Geralt is the last semblance of her original life that even exists at all.
Yeah.
So with everything else, she's just clinging on to that. Like Geralt could be a horrible monster, and she'd be fine with it because it's the last bit of
Well, and she
before
knows
shit went wrong.
Right, and she knows that she's promised to him, so whether he's like an asshole or not, like I think she's just like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is the guy I'm meant to be with. Not necessarily
the
in like
closest
a
thing to
romantic way, but like,
right
you know.
now.
Yeah, like that is basically her surrogate dad at that point. Like there's no other family, no other friends. She is alone other than this poor lady who kept trying to take her in, and I was like, would you fucking leave her alone? She doesn't want you. But
Exactly.
but it was just I don't know, I kind of like I liked it. There was also kind of like a, you know, kind of question in my mind like, yeah, like she doesn't know this guy from Adam, like he could be anybody, but I almost got the feeling that
Well, also,
through
Geralt's super
their
easy to
shared
recognize.
their shared destiny that she just kind of knew. And especially since the very end line is like, who is Yennefer? She had like a mental connection to him or something like that. So I almost wonder if that was how she knew who that was. Because I don't even know if she never met him before. And I don't even know if like anyone ever described to her what a Witcher was. So I don't know if she could even like recognize him for that. I kind of got the feeling
anyone what a Witcher was.
right. Like I
Well,
almost got the
if
feeling that it was
okay,
like a
before
mental
we get too far
connection
away
or
from it.
something.
Sorry, before you get too far away from it, because like I had to dig up some stuff for the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the universe knows what a Witcher is. Like they're genetic mutants that are very good at hunting monsters. They all have cat eyes, and it's like, okay, so look for literally anyone who has white hair and cat eyes.
That
And
was the
there's
thing, is
only
like
10 of them left, so it's that literally
Yeah.
has to be Geralt. Like there's literally no other way. It could be anyone other than him.
that was
Um,
the other question, was like how many people actually know like what that is? Because it seemed like a lot of them for the most part could point out that he was a Witcher, but then like other people didn't really treat him in any special way, which made me think that
Oh no, they hate
didn't
Witchers.
know.
They hate Witchers
I
because they're
wasn't
genetically
sure.
different.
Because they kept like referring to that, but then like other times it seemed like some people didn't know like what he was. I don't know. I was just kind of, and especially her being like 11 years old, like how much does she actually know, other than everyone else who has lived and has heard tales of Witchers and things like that. Like it doesn't seem like she's very, you know, like up on all that stuff. And she was never, as far as we could tell, like no one described him as a Witcher. They just kept saying find Geralt of Rivia, find Geralt of Rivia. Like it was just, you know, it's like I don't know. I know everybody else probably knew, but it was kind of a question of like, does she actually know who that is or what he's supposed to look like? It was kind of interesting that, again, kind of what Bagman was saying, like, you know, she doesn't know this guy and all of a sudden she's going to go up and like hug him or whatever. Especially after that scene where her mage guy, her mage friend turned out to be a different guy who was like using his face or whatever. I would think at that point she would have some trust issues with people she thought were someone, but actually turned to be somebody else. With all this Nilfgaard business trying to catch her, I would think there'd be a little more skepticism. But at the same time, I kind of have to think there's some sort of mental destiny, whatever connection between them. Maybe that was the reason, or just the fact that she's young and scared and just needed somebody and saw him and just got like the feeling that he was safe. I don't know. Again, the series is not spelling that out for you. That's a lot of inference from myself. And I don't know if it's, again, like earned any of that, but that was kind of the vibe that I got from it, I guess.
So, for me, all the things that I've heard today, I think I've learned a lot about The Witcher.
That's good.
It's definitely interesting.
Does
I
it
might.
make you want to go watch?
It doesn't make me want to watch on Netflix. I don't want to pay for it.
Well, yeah. So it
And
wouldn't be
failed.
worthwhile to pay for it, but you'd be willing to watch it if it was
Yeah, I'd
given
be
to you
willing
for
to watch
free.
if it was free.
Now,
yeah.
would you ever like maybe read the books or play the games? Like, if you
Oh
could-
yeah, like I would play the game and read the books. I like reading books more than watching.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, and you know, if you have like a local library or something, sometimes you can get that stuff for like free or whatever. But yeah, like
Not in
like I
India,
said,
not in India.
oh, not
Rebellion.
sorry,
Not in India.
sorry.
In
Sorry.
India, you don't get these kind of books.
But The
You
Witcher,
know,
the guy
Aw,
who
really?
wrote the book,
you,
sold
you
the
get the
rights
book.
to
You get the books like how to become an engineer, a doctor, um, how to do something like.
Is there
how
one
to-
that says how to become
fix
a witcher?
No. There's not even okay. If you ask someone in India, unrelated to the game or the series The Witcher, what do you think? What do you think The Witcher is? They're like, oh, some kind of witchcraft going on.
Yeah, no, it
Like back
definitely
in the 80s?
sounds mystical and whatnot, and like
Yeah,
even
exactly.
I mean, because The Witcher, like that's not like a common word either. It's definitely like
Exactly.
a term, as far as I know, like it's a term that's only been applied to this like franchise. And it at first glance you would assume that it was gonna be like a literal witch, like a mage type character, like a magical person, but
Yeah, definitely.
it was definitely interesting to see, like, you know, exactly what they were. That was the other
Yeah,
thing.
because that's what witchcrafting is. Witchcrafting is basically you take the magic out of the fucking pot and put it on something else, right?
Yeah. Right. Like the mages would be more toward what I would assume like what a witcher was, but just from like
Yeah.
my general knowledge from like the games and stuff, I knew it wasn't going to be exactly like that. The other thing was that I also hope in the future series that they explain more of what he can actually do, because there was a lot of like, oh, suddenly his eyes are like pitch black or whatever. What does that mean? We don't know. And then he kind of went over how his eyes, like, they changed them to make them more like sharp, be able to see stuff better, probably in the dark, that kind of thing. But other than that, like, he seemed like he was strong. He seemed like he had good sword skills, but like there really wasn't an explanation. Sometimes he would do a little poo poo with his hands and it kind of blew people away or whatever, but it's like, again, like it wasn't very cut in stone what he could do. So I want to see someone like explain like how they made the Witchers, what that means, like what that makes them do, that kind of thing, cuz it was kind of vague. And you just were kind of expected to just be like, oh yeah, he can just like fuck up everybody and that's his power or something like that. The mages were also kind of like interesting because it seemed like every one of them had their own specialty. Yennefer seemed like she was really good with like portals. Triss was good with like plants and things like that.
Glad Yennefer's good at getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah, no, totally. And
Get
that
out
was
of my
another thing.
series.
That was another thing, was like I kept wondering, like they kept saying she was so powerful, but then the only thing I'd really seen her do was like give a guy an erection, do some portals, like that's it. And then the very, very, very end, she did a shit ton of like fire magic, which apparently is supposed to be taboo, so that was also kind of like but like can every mage do everything? Or is it just like you kind of have like a specialty and you can kind of dabble in other things? That was the other part that I kind of want explained to me a little bit better. Is like, what can they actually do? You know what I mean? Which I don't know if, again, the games and the books and stuff might get like shed some light on that. I don't know if they will explain it, but I kind of hope that they do. 'Cause yeah, like it was just kind of like Ciri was a question mark because I think she had to be for like, you know, the story to keep going, the plot, like figuring out what the hell she is. I wasn't really upset with like not knowing her deal, but the other characters who we knew were magical, I would just like to know how and like what exactly they can do. The other thing that people seemed to like about the series was some of the fighting scenes. I don't know if you guys had any comments
choreography
about
is pretty
that.
good.
Yeah, like the choreography and stuff. I've heard both things. Like I personally thought it was pretty good. There have been like, certain series and things that I think they get really choppy when they're trying to do like fast combat scenes like that. I liked how they tried to stick it to one shot takes. I thought that was really impressive for the most part. Obviously, some of the like CGI sort of fighting wasn't as impressive, but like I was kind of impressed with the swordplay.
I thought I thought the Striga was the most impressive CGI for me. It was the one that I didn't go, oh, that shouldn't be there. Like the dragons looked a little bit off for me, and the thing at the start, the Kikimora, looked a bit off. But apart from that, it was good.
Oh yeah, and someone brought up the potion that apparently makes his eyes black. Maybe I that was the
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Because I think, didn't he, in the first
What's that
episode, he
about?
might have changed his eyes to black or whatever in that way. But then later on, he was hurt. He drank some, like, black potion stuff. He poured it on his wound, but that didn't change him. So it's like,
each like Witchers have to keep a whole bunch of supplies for when they fight literally everything.
mm-hmm.
So in response to like, oh, I need to be stronger for this, or I need to hunt this in the dark, I have to craft these potions in advance and drink them when I need to. So yeah, it's just they're like, think of them as like the Batman utility belt. If the utility belt sucked, but it's still like useful. So yeah, it's not like he has superpowers or anything. He has his own like.
I mean,
We're
there's a
gonna say, like,
reason why it's called
minimalistic
the
spells.
utility belt. You know, it
Yeah,
has
and again,
utilities.
that was not clear. Because, like,
It's implied in like it's.
I guess,
it's another thing
a
for
little
the world is, hey, we're not gonna tell you what this is. You've got to put it together because this universe we have to cram everything in 8 episodes.
the only time that I saw him, like, actively being like, oh, I gotta use my tools was when he was, like, hurt. He was like, oh, grab my bag, and he's getting the potion out and whatever. But other than that, like, they don't really show him really using potions and mixing stuff up and using stuff in his bag and blah blah blah. It's just a lot of swordplay, and a little twinkly hands doing whatever he's doing. Like, I don't know, that part of it's definitely not clear to me. Like, I didn't know that was like a big part of The Witcher, was that they use like different potions and stuff. I think that might have been a slight fail on their part, trying to explain how he works. Like, because like you said, he doesn't actually have superpowers, and that's what I would have assumed from what I've seen. So
I don't think
that
the
is kinda
Witcher
interesting.
series is meant for people who don't play the games in hindsight or the books. I want to ask
I don't
you,
know. That's
I
kind of
realize,
dumb
like,
if it
after we
isn't.
talk about this, and the more and more, it's just like, huh, you know what? I don't think this was meant to be for. This is a series that was for people who were fans of the material in hindsight.
Possibly. I mean, that's the thing, is they've already said that this series is not at all based on the games, so I don't know if playing the games would necessarily give you a good representation of how this series is going to go, but it's apparently according to the books. So maybe if you've read the books, then this would be like the series for you, but I really hope that they kind of keep in mind that there are people. I mean, like I said before, this was like the top streaming series for a short while, and obviously that's coming from people like me who have never touched any of the Witcher stuff. So that, I think, would be an extreme disappointment if they don't think about their audience and think like there's obviously going to be people who have never touched this stuff before that we need to buy in to this kind of stuff, because there's a whole lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff for them to explain that we need to get. And I got that feeling a little bit, but at the same time, after a second viewing, I felt like I got it a little bit better. There's just a lot of questions that I assumed were going to be answered later, and I hope that they are, because I would hate for them to rely on the fact that, oh, well, everyone who's watched this has seen the book or read the book, so they must know all these things. Like, that is not going to be the case at all.
Yeah,
People
because,
like
like,
my dad, who never touched fantasy literature or anything, games, he's watching this show, and he's not gonna do that. You know what I mean?
I kind of, you know what? I kind of feel that the books that you read about the same thing. Like if you read the Witcher book, the Witcher book. Fucking hell, I forgot this thing. I think there's gonna be a huge loads of differences.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, no one
Yeah,
ever.
so I had the same thing with Harry Potter.
Yeah,
Okay, at that point I was reading Harry Potter, and someone my brother told me that, you know what, just come with us, watch the first movie for Harry Potter, and I go like, um, okay, let's go, and I was so disappointed because in
yeah.
in the book that it portrayed that all the fucking spells were overpowered, and in the show, in the movies, it didn't seem that way.
Yeah, there's been very few adaptations of like books in particular to movies and
Exactly.
shows and
Bec-
whatever
and
else.
because the book was written before the movie, and that's what makes me want to feel like I just have so much anger towards it because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, books obviously can like carry so much more like in-depth information than what they can tell in like a 2-hour long movie. If the movie was like 5 hours long, then maybe you'd get the entire book and all of its little minute details. But they do have to cut out a lot of stuff. And this series, the first season, definitely felt like they were just taking the idea and the origin stories of all these characters and trying to cut it up as much as possible to give you the highlights in 8 episodes. And I personally felt like it could have gone on for another 8 episodes, just trying to tell me all of these different things because I wanted to see all of the interactions between the characters that had happened between those 2 decades or whatever. I wanted to see all of their adventures and stuff like that leading up to them all coming together. Like, I think it could have used a little bit longer. But again, it's kind of like I said, like Game of Thrones sort of thing where they have books to go off of. They can't always include everything. They're going to change stuff to make it better for TV. But for the most part, it's just like balancing what you need to know and how to deliver it to you in a way that's going to make sense. I just hope that, they can kind of like sample the books as much as they need to. I just hope that they actually like give us those little bits and pieces that we need. Because yeah, it is going to be very difficult, but at least this is a TV format, which I think makes it a lot easier because you got a little more time. You got a whole 8 hours in this first season to cover what I'm assuming was all covered in like a book. So maybe they gave us more than like a movie would have. You know what I mean? So that's my only hope for it.
I've done a bit of research on each episode, and quite a few of them are based off of multiple. Oh god, like
It's
multiple
all right.
books. In one episode, sort of thing. A
Mm-hmm.
few
Yeah,
of a few of the episodes are based off the same book.
Uh-huh.
gotcha. Yeah.
I know quite a few of them are based off of Sword of Destiny and Edge of the World. I know the last two are based off the book Something More, and I can't remember the rest, but
Are those the
yeah,
short books or whatever? The short series?
yeah, like the short,
Gotcha.
like because it all comes in like. Which book have you got, by the way, Rebellion? Because
I gotta look it up. It just said Witcher #1 on like Amazon, so I was just like, yep, that's the first one. But it was definitely not the short story versions. Blood of Elves, The Witcher Book 1 is what I have.
yeah, so I think there's a way you can get Blood of Elves, but as like an anthology of stories type of thing. Or at
Oh,
least I
okay.
think the original Polish release is as an anthology.
Okay, yeah, because I'm trying to figure out if there's like a. I feel like there's got to be like a prequel book or something, and maybe that's like the
Uh,
compilation of the short stories or something that you're talking about. Maybe.
I can I can pull up the list of each of the books in a chronological order
Yeah, that might be
because I know
helpful. Because
that.
I think I swear when I went to like um Barnes and Noble trying to look for these books or whatever, I swear I saw one that said like this is in particular a prequel to all of that stuff. But I couldn't tell you because thankfully Amazon like actually lists out like okay, this is Witcher Book 2, Witcher Book 3, but then there's like some random other ones. Season of Storms doesn't have a number, and Sword of Destiny doesn't have a number. So who the frick knows? Oh, and then there's one called The Last Witch, introducing the Witcher. Like, I
Oh,
have no
really?
idea. But
That should be fun.
yeah, right? I have I just don't know how these like order up. Like that's so confusing.
I've I found the order here.
It's also comic books.
Ooh, it's like 2:30. Actually, I need to head out, guys. I've got another thing I need to do.
Yeah, go ahead.
No worries.
We can
Fun.
kind of wrap it up here. I think we've talked about it to death. But thank you guys so much for
Yeah.
popping in and discussing it, especially y'all who have played the games and whatnot, giving us a little more insight into that, because that was the one thing I lacked, was some of that previous insight into the Witcher series. So thank you guys. I think we had a really good discussion.
And I provided humor, okay? I provided
You
some
did.
sort of humor.
You did provide humor. Plus, you were asking good questions for someone who hasn't like watched it or whatever. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I'm glad to have you guys on the podcast. Hopefully, you guys are able to join us. I think next week we're gonna try to talk about the latest Star Wars movie, so if you're interested. So yeah.
Okay,
but-
okay. Just let me know because I need to watch it first, okay?
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. I will talk to y'all later.
Goodbye,
See ya.
everyone.
Bye. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, hey, what's going on, Jay? Thank you so much, everybody who popped by the way. I know it's kind of like, this is our first podcast of 2020. So we wanted to hit off with a bang, talk about something big. The Witcher kind of won the discussion, so we decided to talk about that today. But we talk about a whole range of different topics throughout the different podcasts that we do. So definitely make sure to pop by next time. We're going to try to talk about the latest Star Wars movie in the next podcast. It's going to be the same time, Sundays. It's 11 a.m. for me and MST. I don't remember what all the other ones. 10 a.m. PST, blah, blah, blah. But if you're interested in joining us, I'm going to go ahead and link the Discord here. Feel free to join us. It is a streaming community, but we also just kind of play games together, do podcasts together, that kind of thing. Game nights, whatever. So if you're interested in joining us for the next podcast, or if you just want to like hang out with some cool people, check out that Discord. We'd love to have you. And I will see you guys next week for another podcast. Usually I'm the one hosting, but everyone is allowed to host their own if they wish. You just gotta let us know. So if you have an interesting topic, feel free to chat with us in the podcast channel, and we could probably get something going. I'm gonna find somebody to raid real quick. And thank you guys also for like the raids and everything else, and for stopping by and chatting for a little bit. Since it is a podcast format, it's kind of hard for us to like talk about chat and also talk about the thing that we're talking about. But I appreciate you guys sticking through and kind of giving your 2 cents. It's always appreciated. Let's see who is live. Let's go to The Goose Abides. He is playing some Chrono Trigger, which I've heard good things about, so that'll be exciting. The Goose Abides. Here we go. Monstros hype. All right, we'll start that raid up. Thank you guys again. I will see y'all next Sunday on this channel. If you guys want to know me and my channel, I think I have something. There we go. That is my personal channel. So if you like the sound of my voice and want to hang out and do crazy, stupid shit, definitely hit up my link. We're going to be doing some giveaways on Monday because we reached 100 followers, baby. But anyway, give Goose some love and I will see you guys later. Bye!